This story is titled, At Our Gender Reveal Party, my mother-in-law cornered me saying my wife had made a terrible error marrying someone below her level, mentioning another man on standby. My wife laughed while caressing her belly as my hands trembled with suppressed emotions. By next day, everyone was speechless after what they discovered. Hey Reddit, my hands are literally shaking as I type this. I'm a 31-year-old man who never thought I'd be sharing this kind of story online, but I desperately need to get this off my chest because I'm about to lose my freaking mind. I've been reading posts on this sub for years, always thinking, thank God that's not me, whenever I read about someone's relationship falling apart. Well, now it's my turn to share, and I need some perspective from people who aren't involved in this mess. For some background, I met my wife Clara, who's now 28, about 4 years ago through mutual friends. We hit it off immediately, one of those connections where everything just clicked. We got married 2 years later in what I thought was the beginning of our perfect life together. Now she's 7 months pregnant with our first child, a baby girl. I was over the moon when we found out about the pregnancy, until this weekend happened. Last year, we bought a smaller house in an older neighborhood. It's definitely a fixer-upper. The kitchen is dated, there are some plumbing issues, and the backyard is basically just dirt right now. But it's ours. We purchased it without any financial help from family, something I was particularly proud of. I've been fixing it up room by room on weekends, and Clara seemed happy with it. Or so I thought. Her mother, Vivian, has always been difficult from day one. She's constantly made these little comments that seem innocuous but are clearly meant to belittle me. Things like, oh, you work as a graphic designer, HM. Or, this neighborhood is interesting. Always with that calculated pause and that look that makes her disdain crystal clear. I've kept my mouth shut all this time because whenever I've mentioned it to Clara, she just dismisses it with, that's just how mom is, and changes the subject. This weekend was Clara's baby shower. We decided to host it at our place, even though Vivian strongly suggested, with that condescending tone she always uses, that maybe we should rent a venue instead. I spent all week prepping the house, repainting the living room, fixing the wobbly porch step, and even installing new light fixtures in the dining room. Everything had to be perfect. When the day of the baby shower arrived, I was already stressed. I started setting up the folding chairs we had borrowed from Clara's cousin, while the early guests began arriving. I was sweating through my shirt, partly from the physical work, and partly because the AC in our house is temperamental at best. We've been meaning to get it fixed, but it hasn't been in the budget yet. Vivian showed up an hour early with her friend from church. I watched as they walked around the house, inspecting everything with these pinched looks on their faces, like they had smelled something unpleasant. I was arranging the last row of chairs when Vivian cornered me. She literally backed me against the wall with her church friend watching. And what happened next is still ringing in my ears. Oliver, she said, all sugary sweet but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, my daughter made a huge mistake marrying someone who can't even afford a real house. My jaw tightened, but I said nothing, hoping she'd stop there. She didn't. Look at this place, she continued, gesturing around dismissively. The roof probably leaks, the floors creak, and that bathroom, my God. I remained silent, my fists clenched so tight my nails were digging into my palms. Thank God her ex is still in the picture for emotional support, Vivian said with a little smile. Did you know Nathan just bought the most beautiful new construction in Pine Ridge? 4 bedrooms, a home theater. Now that's a place to raise my grandbaby. I glanced over at Clara, who was across the room with her sister Ellie and 2 friends. And what did my wife do? She giggled, rubbed her belly and giggled again, like it was all some kind of joke. My face was burning with humiliation and anger, but there were 20 women in my house. It was my wife's baby shower, a day that was supposed to be special for her. So I just nodded and said, "Excuse me, I need to get more chairs," and walked away like the pathetic doormat I apparently am. Throughout the entire shower, Vivian continued dropping these comments. She told stories about Nathan and Clara's romantic trip to Aruba from back in college, asking Clara if she was really sure about the baby's nursery being in such a small room. I stayed in the kitchen most of the time, bringing out food and refilling punch. No one even acknowledged my presence except for Ellie, who gave me this look like she felt sorry for me. After everyone finally left, I started cleaning up while Clara sat on the couch opening gifts. I asked her if she heard what her mom had said to me. She sighed and rolled her eyes. "Mom's just concerned about us, Oliver," she said dismissively. "This house is kind of a mess, and your job isn't exactly stable." Her comment hit me like a slap. I had never told Clara's family much about my finances. I make decent money, but I'm careful with it. Always have been. And yes, I was laid off last year, but I found a new gig within weeks. And what was that about you giggling when she was trashing our home? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. Our home, Clara, that we picked together. She immediately got defensive. You're being dramatic, she said with another eye roll. I was just laughing at something Ellie said. Not everything is about you, but I saw her face when her mother was speaking. I know what I saw. We went to bed angry that night, the tension between us thick and uncomfortable. The next morning, things were still tense between us. I noticed Clara's phone kept buzzing with texts, and she seemed to be deliberately angling it away from me whenever I walked by. That was red flag number 1. Later, I was in the garage looking for some paint when Clara's phone rang on the kitchen counter. I wasn't trying to snoop, but I couldn't help noticing the name on the screen. Nathan. Her ex. The same Nathan that Vivian had been comparing me to at the baby shower. That was red flag number 2. As the day progressed, I accidentally overheard Clara on the phone in our bedroom. She was speaking in a hushed voice, but our walls are thin and her words carried clearly. I know, Mom, she said softly. There was a pause before she continued. Yes, he's being difficult again. Another pause. No, I haven't told him yet. I froze in the hallway, my heart suddenly pounding. I know the timing isn't ideal, she added before lowering her voice even further. Haven't told me what? The question echoed in my mind as I quietly backed away from the door. That night, Clara announced she was going to her mom's to help sort baby clothes her cousin had dropped off. It seemed reasonable enough, but she didn't come home until after midnight. When she finally slipped into bed, she smelled like perfume I didn't recognize. That was red flag number 3. The next morning, while Clara was in the shower, I did something I'm not proud of. The suspicion had been eating at me all night, keeping me awake as I listened to her breathing beside me. I checked her phone. I know it was a breach of trust, but what I discovered justified my worst fears. There were dozens of texts between her and her mom about Nathan. They discussed my financial situation in detail, with Vivian repeatedly emphasizing how the baby deserves better circumstances. And then I saw it. A text from Vivian to Clara that made my blood run cold. Nathan said the offer still stands. You wouldn't have to worry about money ever again. Think about the baby. Clara's response was simple but devastating. I know, Mom. I'm thinking about it. I confronted her the moment she stepped out of the bathroom, still wrapped in a towel with her hair dripping. We had the biggest fight of our marriage. She accused me of invading her privacy, of being controlling, of not trusting her. I couldn't believe she was trying to turn this around on me after what I'd read. She eventually stormed out, saying she was going to her parents until I calmed down and stopped being paranoid. That was 3 days ago. I've been alone in our house, the house I've poured my heart and savings into, wondering what the hell happened to my life, to my marriage. This morning I woke up to my phone blowing up, over 30 missed calls. 18 were from Clara, 12 from Vivian. There were voice messages and texts, but I haven't listened to any of them yet. I've been sitting here, staring at my phone, wondering whether I should even bother. Because last night Ellie, Clara's sister, showed up at my door crying. What she told me about what Vivian and Clara have been planning behind my back for months? I don't even know who my wife is anymore. I need advice. Am I overreacting? Should I listen to the voicemails? Or should I just proceed with what I'm planning to do now that I know the truth? First of all, holy crap. I never expected my post to blow up like that. Thank you all for the support. Sorry I haven't responded to comments. Things have been absolutely insane these past few days. So those 30 missed calls I mentioned in my last post? I finally gathered the courage to listen to the voicemails. The first few were from Clara, all tearful, saying she needed to talk, that I was misunderstanding everything. Blah, blah, blah. Standard damage control. Then Vivian's messages started coming in, each one more panicked than the last. The final one just said, "You need to answer your damn phone now before you ruin everything." Ruin everything? Me? The audacity of this woman is unbelievable. I didn't call either of them back. Instead, I texted Clara a single message. I know what you and your mom have been planning. I need time to process this. Don't come home yet. Now, about what Ellie told me that night, buckle up, because it's so much worse than I thought. Apparently, Vivian has been orchestrating this whole thing from the beginning. For the past 4 months, she's been meeting with Nathan weekly to plan how to get Clara to leave me. She's been telling everyone in their family that I'm basically a deadbeat who can't support Clara and the baby. But it gets worse. She's been telling people at their church that she's concerned about the baby's paternity. Yeah, that bad. But here's the real kicker. Nathan isn't just the ex-boyfriend. He's Vivian's godson. His parents and Vivian have been friends for 30 years, and they've always wanted their kids to end up together. When Clara chose me instead, Vivian never accepted it. Never. Ellie showed me screenshots of a group chat between Vivian, Nathan, and Clara. They've been house hunting together. House hunting for a place for Clara and the baby without me. Vivian's been making large deposits into Clara's personal account. Money I now know came from Nathan. My stomach literally turned when I saw messages about how they would handle Oliver once the baby arrived. Vivian suggested Clara file for emergency custody the day she gives birth, claiming I'm unstable. They were planning to lock me out of my own life. And Clara, my wife, the woman carrying my child, she went along with all of it. After Ellie left that night, I sat on our couch until sunrise just staring at the wall. The hurt was so deep, I couldn't even cry. Our wedding photos stared back at me from the shelf I built last summer. The ultrasound picture hung proudly on the fridge, the half-painted nursery down the hall mocking me with its hopeful yellow walls. The next morning, I called my buddy Marcus. He's the most level-headed guy I know. I told him everything, and he came over immediately with coffee and donuts. He sat me down and said something that changed everything. Stop reacting and start documenting. For the past 3 days, that's exactly what I've been doing. First, I went through our finances with a fine-tooth comb. Turns out Clara's been siphoning money from our joint account into her personal one for months. Small amounts, $100 here, $50 there, but it adds up to over $3,000. I found emails between Clara and a realtor about houses in Pine Ridge, the same neighborhood Vivian mentioned at the shower. In one email, Clara specifically asks about school districts, saying, I need to make sure my daughter has the best possible start, unlike what my husband had. That one hit hard. I grew up in a trailer park, worked my ass off to get where I am. Clara knew this. She knew how proud I was to buy our house. Yesterday, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was Nathan. Man to man, you should know Clara's been unhappy for a long time, he wrote. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I didn't respond, but I saved the text and added it to my growing collection of evidence. Then this morning, the weirdest thing happened. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, knocked on my door. She handed me a casserole dish and said, For you. Vivian told everyone at Bridge Club your wife left because you were abusive. She paused, looking me straight in the eyes before continuing. I don't believe it. My late husband had the same eyes as you. Kind eyes. Abusive? Nonsense. That was the moment something inside me just snapped. The sadness that had been weighing me down for days crystallized into something harder, colder. I called Ellie immediately, and she confirmed it. Vivian has been telling everyone who would listen that Clara left because she feared for her safety, that she's worried about the baby. Ellie's been trying to counter these rumors, but Vivian has way more social capital in their circle. I went into our spare room, cleared off the desk, and set up my old laptop. I created a new email account and started a document simply titled Everything. For the next 6 hours, I compiled screenshots, bank statements, texts, emails. Everything I could find showing what they've been doing. While digging through old emails, I found something interesting. Vivian's church does this big charity fundraiser every year, and she's been in charge of it for the past decade. There were emails forwarded to Clara showing discrepancies in the accounting, significant ones. It appears Vivian's been skimming from the donation pool for years. I also discovered Vivian's been pressuring Clara's father, Frank, to remortgage their paid-off house to help Nathan with his latest business venture. Frank's been resistant, literally the only backbone that man has ever shown. And Vivian's been threatening to tell people about his affair from 10 years ago. An affair that, according to Ellie, never actually happened. What kind of person does this? Blackmails their own husband? Tries to steal their daughter's baby? And then it hit me. Vivian doesn't just want to control Clara. She wants my baby, our daughter, the ultimate accessory to show off at church and Bridge Club. A do-over with her precious Nathan as the father figure. Over my dead body. Around midnight, I got a call from Ellie. Vivian's planning a big charity gala at their church next month. Some fancy dinner where she'll be recognized for her years of service. Everyone who's anyone in their community will be there. Even the local news might cover it. That's when I knew exactly what I needed to do. This morning, I opened a new bank account at a different bank and transferred my portion of our savings. I called to freeze our joint credit cards, changed all my passwords, and backed up everything to the cloud and an external hard drive. I wasn't going to let them blindside me financially. I just got off the phone with Clara, the first time we've spoken in almost a week. She was crying, saying she wants to come home, that her mom went too far, that she was confused. I told her she could come by tomorrow to get more clothes, but only if Ellie comes with her. She asked if we could work things out, if I would consider counseling. I said nothing for so long she probably thought I hung up. Then I just asked, "Is the baby mine, Clara?" She started sobbing, saying, "Of course the baby is mine. How could I ask such a thing?" But the hesitation before she answered told me everything I needed to know. I told her I'll be requesting a paternity test. The line went silent. Then she exploded. How dare I, after everything, after all we've been through? After she betrayed me? The audacity is breathtaking. We're getting that test whether she likes it or not. But here's the thing. Even if the baby is mine, and I pray she is, I'm done with Clara. A switch has flipped. I feel nothing for her now except disappointment and disgust. But Vivian? For her, I feel something much darker. She tried to destroy my life, separate me from my child, ruin my reputation. And for what? Because I'm not from the right background? Because our house isn't fancy enough? The revenge I'm planning isn't about getting even. It's about making sure Vivian never does this to anyone again. And it starts at that charity gala. I've already spoken to Ellie about what I need from her. She's all in. Marcus is helping me compile everything. Things are moving fast now. Vivian wants to play games? Fine, but she has no idea who she's playing with. And Clara? She made her choice. Now she gets to live with the consequences. I'll update again after tomorrow's meeting with the paternity testing clinic, and maybe after I talk to a few people from Vivian's church about those financials. It's been 6 months since my last update. Sorry for the radio silence. A lot has happened, and I'm only now finding the headspace to write it all down. My daughter Lucy was born 8 weeks ago. She's perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, and thankfully a DNA test confirmed what I already knew in my heart. She's mine. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The morning after my last post, I woke up to a weird Facebook notification. Someone had tagged me in a post I couldn't see. It turned out Vivian had blocked me, but was posting about me, calling me unstable and saying she feared for her daughter and grandbaby's safety. The post had dozens of sympathetic comments from her church friends. The character assassination had begun in earnest. That same day, Clara came by with Ellie to get more clothes. The moment she walked in, I noticed something off. She was wearing a necklace I'd never seen before, a small diamond pendant that definitely wasn't in our budget. Later, Ellie confirmed Nathan had given it to her the day before. Cool, cool, cool. While Clara gathered her things, avoiding eye contact the whole time, Ellie slipped me a USB drive. On it were recordings of Vivian's conversations with Nathan and Clara from the past 3 weeks. Ellie had been using the voice memo app on her phone anytime they were together, hiding it in her purse. That night, after they left, I listened to those recordings. My hands shook so hard I spilled coffee all over my keyboard. There was Vivian talking to Nathan. Once the baby comes, we'll file for emergency custody. I have a friend at CPS who can help expedite things. Oliver won't know what hit him. Then Nathan laughing. The loser probably can't even afford a decent lawyer. But the worst was Clara's voice. I just need to stick it out for a few more weeks. Mom's right. Once the baby is here, it'll be easier to make the break. I just hope he doesn't contest anything. I sat there in the dark, listening to these people, including my wife, planning to erase me from my child's life. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. The next morning, I drove to the lab for the paternity test Clara had finally agreed to. In the waiting room, an older guy nodded at my Metallica t-shirt and said his son had seen them live last year. We got talking, and it turns out he was on the board at Trinity Church, Vivian's church, the one hosting the upcoming charity gala. Coincidence? Maybe? Opportunity? Definitely. I mentioned I'd heard their annual fundraiser was coming up. He lit up, talking about how Vivian had single-handedly saved their building fund, how they were planning to name the new addition after her, how she'd been handling all the money for years because no one else wanted the responsibility. I nodded and smiled and filed everything away. Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly. The paternity test came back positive. Clara moved permanently to her parents. I spoke to 3 different lawyers. Ellie kept feeding me information. Marcus helped me organize everything. I learned Vivian had been systematically stealing from the church charity fund for over 5 years. Small amounts at first, then larger sums as she got bolder. The money went to Nathan's failed business ventures, designer clothes, And ironically, the down payment on a house in Pine Ridge she'd already put an offer on for Clara and the baby. Meanwhile, she was still telling everyone I was abusive, unstable, possibly not the father. The rumors spread through their social circle like wildfire. I lost friends. I got dirty looks at the grocery store. Someone even keyed my car with the word abuser. Through it all, I said nothing, just gathered evidence, made connections, and waited. The night of the gala finally arrived. Ellie texted me that Vivian was wearing a new dress she'd bought with church money. Frank looked miserable. Nathan was there as Clara's support. The church was packed with Vivian's social circle, the mayor, local business owners, other church leaders. I waited until dinner was served before walking in. The look on Vivian's face when she saw me? Worth every second of the past months. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide how quickly the blood drained from her face. I walked straight to the pastor, handed him a sealed envelope, and simply said, "You should see this before you name anything after her." Inside, bank statements showing Vivian's systematic theft from the church fund, records of personal purchases made with charity money, screenshots of her threatening Frank with the fake affair, and the full audio recordings of her planning to take my child. I didn't stick around for the fallout. I didn't need to. As I walked to my car, I could hear raised voices from inside. Vivian's was the loudest, high-pitched with panic. The next morning, the texts started pouring in. From Clara, "What did you do?" From Ellie, "Holy crap, it's happening!" From numbers I didn't recognize. Church members asking for more details. By afternoon, Vivian's Facebook page was gone. The church had called an emergency board meeting. Clara wasn't answering calls from anyone, not even Nathan. 2 days later, Ellie called me in tears. The church had found even more discrepancies than I'd uncovered. Over $70,000 missing in total. Vivian was being asked to pay it all back. She'd been removed from all committees, and the police were considering charges. But the social fallout was even worse. Friends of 30 years wouldn't speak to her. Her bridge club kicked her out. The country club lost her membership application. Frank finally grew a spine and moved out. He's staying with his brother. And Nathan? The moment things got rough, he ghosted. Blocked Clara and Vivian on everything. Turned out he'd been lying about his finances, too. His business was failing, and he'd been counting on Vivian's investment to save it. A week later, Clara showed up at my door. She was 8 months pregnant, mascara streaked down her face. She begged to come home, said she'd made a terrible mistake listening to her mother, that she still loved me, that she wanted our family back. I looked at this woman, this stranger wearing my wife's face, and felt nothing. No anger, no love, just emptiness. I told her she could come back for the baby's sake, but our marriage was over. She could stay in the guest room until after the birth. After that, we'd figure out co-parenting. The next 6 weeks were awkward as hell. We lived like polite roommates. I installed a lock on my bedroom door and set up cameras around the house with her knowledge. Clara spent most days crying or staring blankly at the TV. I focused on finishing the nursery. Lucy came 3 weeks early. I was there for the birth, cut the cord. The moment they placed her in my arms, that hard knot in my chest finally loosened. I cried for the first time in months. The paternity test confirmed what I already knew when I saw her. She has my eyes, my nose. She's mine. We've settled into an uneasy co-parenting routine. Clara moved into a small apartment nearby. We exchange Lucy every 3 days. It's not ideal, but it works. The divorce will be final next month. As for Vivian, she and Frank are officially separated. She had to sell her house to repay the church and cover legal fees. She's renting a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. Her social standing is destroyed. Her friends are gone. The charity named their new building after someone else. She's texted me 27 times asking to see Lucy. Calls me at least once a week. Left tear-filled voicemails about how she just wants to meet her granddaughter, how she's learned her lesson, how she's a changed woman. The irony isn't lost on me. The woman who thought I couldn't provide, who tried to erase me from my daughter's life, is now begging for scraps of attention. Last week, I ran into Mrs. Wilson while walking Lucy in her stroller. She smiled and said, "Your baby has your eyes. Kind eyes." Then she handed me another casserole dish and added, "Vivian came by asking about you two. I told her to leave good people alone." I haven't decided if Vivian will ever be allowed to see Lucy. That's a bridge I'll cross when my daughter is older. For now, I'm focusing on being the best dad I can be. Our house isn't fancy. The kitchen still needs updating. The backyard is still mostly dirt, though I've started putting in a small garden. But it's ours, mine and Lucy's. No one can take that away. And every night when I rock my daughter to sleep in the nursery, I finished painting myself. I know one thing for certain. This is what a real home looks like. For those asking about Ellie, she's become a good friend and an amazing aunt to Lucy. She and her mom haven't spoken in months, and no, I'm not interested in dating yet. I've got my hands full with an infant and a divorce. Maybe someday, but for now, Lucy is all the love I need in my life.